Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the IVES number 61A10. This is a simple aluminum, cast aluminum baseboard mounted doorstop, extremely typical and common in the northwest suburbs of Chicago in the 1950s and 60s. There were likely metric tons of this material installed in all those houses that were built in your Norridge and Harwood Heights and northwest suburbs, Mount Prospect, everywhere. Bronze was a popular color then, and you needed baseboard stops. A customer of ours would walk in and need 12 privacies. I need 8 passage. I need 4 dummies. I need 4 keyed entry locks. I need 3 deadbolts. I want them keyed alike. I want them to run on my master. Let's see, what else do you have? I'm going to need some door stops. So let me have some baseboard mounted. Let me have some hinge pin mounted door stops. What else? Oh, spring weather stripping. I'm going to need some spring bronze because I want to put that on the basement door. The entry door and the back door came with it, but the basement door is going to need some spring bronze or V cushion, whatever the case might be. They have a pound of 2 5/8 coarse drywall screws. You get the picture. This is a very typical item, that you're going to see all the time. The fact that it's bronze makes it less common nowadays, most certainly, but bronze is by no means the year's 2022, and the scenario I just gave you was for sure from the very early 1990s, although that could have existed in the early 1960s. When you're looking at typical common baseboard stops or any sort of means to stop the door, something like this is going to be considered typical in residential applications. Why? They're inexpensive, they're easy to install. You're always going to have baseboard to install this to, or the back of the door, but they'll generally go onto the baseboard. It has a replaceable rubber tip, which these are very common for us to sell. We sell far more replacement tips than I think we do baseboard stops, and it's probably because we're not a lumber yard. We don't sell pre-hungs, so a hardware package is usually rolled in with that material. But we are definitely getting that same customer 20 years later when these bumpers have been disappeared, chewed by the family pet, fatigued, failed, things of that nature. So what are you looking for when you are thinking of a baseboard stop? Well, this is typical and common in our pre-ADA compliant world of everything is a knob. So be mindful, the projection of this is about 3 1/4. You could easily get into hardware that's going to have a greater projection. Those levers are larger, especially when you have lever trim and keyed functions, because they need more room to stick the cylinder inside of there. And the inside is also going to be the same sort of projection, and you need to have clearance from the back side of the lever. The lock has to be designed so that someone with physical needs can get their hand inside of it, so you'll have greater projections. Will this likely work in all situations? In most situations, yeah. Should you be checking if 3 1/4 projection, well, plus your baseboard, what are you going to install this down to? It's going to be 3 11/16 at that point, something in that range. Is that adequate? So that when your door comes to close, will that baseboard stop prevent it from going too far and making contact? That's what you don't want. And naturally, in the spirit of figuring out which doorstop you need, it's obviously going to be based on what projection, is required. Will a baseboard stop even work to begin with? There's definitely pros and cons about something like this. Like I probably said earlier, they're awfully inexpensive, easy to install. They last forever, generally, unless they're hit by the vacuum cleaner and knocked off the wall. The rubber tips do fatigue and fail. You have to replace these. IVES has other types of stops. There are obviously floor-mounted stops. There are hinge pin stops. There are overhead stops. There are stops that are in door closer arms. Wall-mounted stops as well. Holders, non-holders, things of that nature. Let's switch to the screen view and we'll look at this item and its supporting documentation. We'll talk about the A in the part number. Let's do that now. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Here's the item that we are looking at, 61A10, just a factory stock image. Base diameter 7/8, I didn't take that dimension, but there it is. 3 3/16 projection. Tip diameter 5/8. There's the replacement part, WS part.1075. This is available as either sold as each or sold in a bag of 100. Here they are. Here's each. Okay, you can obviously just order that and be off to the races. Okay, there you go. Now, there is some images that we have. Let's look at those as well. There's the packaging, the item in its packaging, and then different perspectives. Product brochure is here. Scrolling through to find our 61. All right, so 61. You need to be careful with IVES. If they put a 0 in front of a 61, like an 061, which I don't think they have that as a part number, but the inclusion of a 0 in the beginning can give you a different part number. That's for sure. All right, so what are we talking about? I had said earlier we'll talk about the A in the part number. If there is an A in the part number, it means the base material is aluminum. This is an A10, which is over here, satin bronze. If there's a B in the part number, that means that it's a brass-based material. So if this was a 61B10, it'd be a solid brass and a satin brass plated finish on that solid brass. Made from brass, aluminum, or zinc. And the table of those base materials are down here. So that's your page right there. I had opened up the product brochure and not the cut sheet. The cut sheet is just this single page. But in the product brochure, you're going to find variations on baseboard mounted stops and otherwise. Hinge pin material, hinge pin stops. In terms of the baseboard mounted, there are spring style. These are even less expensive and will tolerate being bumped into with the vacuum cleaner a little bit better because they're springs. IVES had at one time a longer projection. This WS65 is 3 3/4. They had one that was like the 61 but a greater projection. Apparently they don't anymore. And then heavier duty versions of door stops and holders are in this catalog. So you might want to take a closer look at all of that. Okay, so other finishes that we can do that 61 in on an aluminum. Now, why would you want aluminum rather than brass? Economy. They're just substantially less expensive. So on aluminum base, you can do polished brass, antique brass, satin bronze, a dark bronze, polished nickel, satin nickel, polished chrome, satin chrome, zinc, Venetian bronze, black, and white are what these codes mean. Up here in solid brass, polished brass, satin brass, antique brass, satin bronze, oil rub bronze, satin nickel, antique nickel, black, polished chrome, satin chrome, and a dark bronze finish. Aged bronze, they call it. I was doing those codes. And then zinc, super inexpensive, just a zinc base material. There is a link below, as seen here, to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the IVES products we sell by means of this horizontal navigation, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog as seen here. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, if you have any questions on that IVES 61 baseboard mounted stop, please feel free to reach out to us. IVES is under the Allegiant umbrella, and her sister companies would be well-known names if IVES isn't already well-known enough. Schlage, LCN, Von Duprin, Glenn Johnson, Falcon, Zero, former names of Monarch and Doramatic, etc. That link to the manufacturer's page, when I pointed out the catalog, if you look in the upper left-hand area, there are two catalogs that are turn of the 20th century, late 1800s, really early 1900s, 1896 and 1904. 30 years ago, if someone came in and asked for IVES, half of the time they were asking for sash lifts and sash locks. And if you look in those catalogs, you'll see IVES was known as a window hardware manufacturer. So they had a very deep collection of product offering when it came to just sash locks. I don't know how people would be able to pick one over the other when you've got 12 choices of design alone and they all do the same job. So those catalogs are neat if you want to see what was made well over a century ago. Any questions on anything IVES related, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.